Penthouse. The Chicago Cubs have just won the World Series and were greatly anticipating their next title, which would take a little while. And the Indianapolis Motor Speedway didn't even exist in 1908. This was all farmland. It was known as the Old Presley Farm. But it's important to remember that during the first part of the 20th century, that Indiana was second in terms of automobile production in the United States, only behind Detroit. Now, we had over 100 different car makes based in the state, but most of those names are very short-lived and are long forgotten. I doubt either of you ever had a Stoddard Dayton or a Gallinatus in your garage growing up, but all those car makes needed a testing ground because roads at that time really weren't the best quality. So a group of 4 individuals, led by a man named Carl Fisher, decided to purchase the Old Presley Farm for $72,000 and build a 2.5-mile testing ground. That's the oval that you see today. The track opened in August of 1909, and we had a crushed stone and tar surface. But during the first weekend of races here, that surface failed horribly. There were several serious accidents. Then the track started coming apart. So track ownership says, okay, hold it. Gotta come up with something else. And there are a lot of paving bricks made in the area. So they used 3.2 million paving bricks to cover the entire surface, and amazingly, they did it in just 63 days. The track reopened again in the fall of, well, after 1909, 1910, I should say. And we had a number of races throughout the year, but by the end of 1910, crowds were beginning to dwindle. And track ownership thinks we can't catch a break. So they decided for 1911, they would just focus their efforts on one major epic race. They decided to have it on or around Memorial Day, because that crowd had drawn very well in 1910, and also the daylight helped with that. And because of that daylight, they decided to make the race a 500-mile event, because that would give fans enough time to come to the track, enjoy a full day of racing, and get home all before nightfall, because most fans were still coming by horse and buggy back then. So May 30th, 1911, the very first international 500-mile sweepstakes was held. Ray Haroon won that event. The vehicle known as the Marmon Wasp, which that's on display inside of the museum. And the day was a massive success with over 80,000 spectators showing up. And that's how the tradition of the Indy 500 got started. And I do apologize because I do not have defroster, so hopefully we're able to see it.
Probably. I'll see if you want to crack the window.
Yeah, you can crack the window if you want, absolutely. I might actually do that myself. Well, we enter the track here onto one of our 2 short chutes that we have. This one connects turns 1 and 2. There's another one at the north end that connects 3 and 4. And each of these measure at 1/8 of a mile in length. 4 turns are each 1/4 of a mile, and the 2 long straightaways are 5/8 of a mile. Now, I use my Central Pennsylvania education here, and I figure out, that adds up to 2.5 miles in length. As we enter the second turn here, you're starting to feel the effects of our banking that we have. Each of the 4 turns are equally banked at 9 degrees and 12 minutes. By comparison, down at Daytona Beach, Florida, where they had that other 500-mile race I'm talking about, the banking down there is 31 degrees, but Indy cars are designed more for these lower bank tracks. Now, after these grandstands end here on the right, you're going to notice off in the distance there's a white building with 2 peaks coming out of its roof. Here, you should be starting to see it right about now. See it off there in the distance?
Yeah.
That is the barn from the Old Presley Farm. That's the oldest building on Speedway grounds. We're not sure exactly when it was built, but I believe it dates back to at least the Civil War. And it's just now kind of used as a storage facility, and it's been doctored up so it looks very nice for our golf course that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. Now over here to the right, this is the first permanent suite structure we ever had built here at the track back in 1973, the Turn 2 Suites. Top floor was added in 1979. They were all renovated again in the mid-90s. But gives VIPs an up-close view of whatever's happening on track that day. So we'll accelerate a little bit down the backstretch here. Now, if IndyCar was going by here on the midpoint of the backstretch, let's say, they'd be going by at about 235 miles per hour, which means they'd cover a football field in 9/10 of a second. Now, this is one of our newer cars, but I'm doing about, what, 80? Well, about 16. That's what I'm going at right now. So. Now, on either side of us here, we have our golf course at the Speedway. A lot of people are surprised to know that we've had one. Well, we've had one here since 1929. I've had several different layouts over the years. The most recent design was built in 1992, designed by a gentleman named Pete Rye. And it features 4 holes on the inside of the track and 14 holes outside of the track beyond the backstretch. We'll see the golf course a little bit more up close later on the tour, and I'll tell you a few more fun facts about it. I got the pedal to the metal. We're up to 18 miles per hour, folks. Of course, we have the fence fencing around the outside of the track. We did not have fence fencing all the way around the track for many years. But finally, after kind of an interesting large crash in 1958 where a car went outside the track, we realized, yeah, we probably should start getting fence fencing up. So as we enter into the third turn now, we see the countdown for the braking markers to get into the turn, although some of the IndyCar drivers today that go wide open around here have no idea what these signs mean. But if you look over here to the left, you're going to notice the latest addition to our facility. It's a quarter-mile dirt track. And again, we'll get a little bit closer to that later on. We won't be able to go up to it, though, because of the weather, unfortunately. But we'll talk a little bit more about its history, what exactly happens there. So as we enter the third turn, you're going to notice on either side of us here, we have what appears to be that foam sticking up behind the wall. That is the safer barrier. Now, SAFER is an acronym for Steel and Foam Energy Reduction. It is not a soft wall. Some people like to call it that. After a number of drivers say hitting one of these walls is harder than hitting a concrete wall. But it is a wall that is designed to give. And therefore, instead of the impact of the car hitting a concrete wall where the driver takes all that energy from the impact, this one, since it gives, it takes a lot of that energy that the driver would normally take. Now, unlike what several broadcasters in the motorsports world, Darrell Waltrip, like to say, NASCAR did not develop the safer barrier. It was developed by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in conjunction with the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and first installed here in 2002. And probably, of all the safety innovations that have come along in motorsports, probably this is the biggest one, I would say, since the fuel cell in the mid-60s. It's prevented many drivers from very serious injuries or worse. What year was that? 2002. And now if you're a major oval track in the United States and you want to host a NASCAR or IndyCar event, you are required to have safer barriers on at least some portions of your track. Now you'll notice here on the right, we do not have safer barriers, but we still have them over here on the left. That's kind of a twofold reason. One, safer barriers are extremely expensive. Something along the lines of $5,000 per square foot or square yard. So therefore, we only install it in areas where the chance of a severe impact from the wall is higher. So there on the inside wall, you actually can see where it ends. That's where the chance of really swerving into the inside wall is minimal. And then here on the right, it picks back up again. Now, there are some racetracks around the country, like Bristol Motor Speedway in Tennessee. They proudly say we have safer barriers every square inch around the track. And that's terrific. And it's certainly not knocking that by any means. But they're also a half-mile track. So they can afford to do that. It would be a pretty major undertaking to do 2.5 miles for sure. Now over there on the left, the portion of the infield road course. That's kind of the north end of the course. I promise you, I'm not kicking the can down the road. We'll talk a little bit more about it later on, and actually, I think we might be able to get on a portion of it. Hopefully, I'm not sure. We'll be checking that out. Good heavens, I haven't seen rain like this since, I don't know when. I've been doing tours for a year and a half now. I don't think I've ever driven around in rain like this. But at any rate, here we come onto the front stretch. And this is where the vast majority of our permanent seats are located. We have permanent seating for 250,000 spectators. Now you combine that with infield capacity, you're looking at a crowd upwards of 350,000 for a typical Indy 500. That's more than the population of the city of Cincinnati, Ohio, or the country of Iceland. So therefore, the 500 does hold the distinction of being the world's largest single-day sporting event in terms of physical attendance. Now, I'll swerve down here to the inside. Normally, if this is a race, you don't want this to happen. But you'll notice that there are a series of walls here that separate the racetrack from pit road. If you're a long-time racing fan, you'll see that. You'll hear me say that. You'll think, oh, God, every track has walls that separate, or some sort of separation. But it is believed we were the first racing facility in the world to have this safety feature when it was first installed back in 1957. Of course, pit stops have greatly evolved over the years. One of my favorite stories about the early days, sure, in 1913 came here. Back then, pit stops would last several minutes. And every time he came into the pits, his crew would give him a pint-sized bottle of champagne to drink. He had 6 of those bottles of champagne over the course of the race, and he still won the event by the largest margin in history, over 13 minutes ahead of the second place finisher. So, I don't know what that's about drinking and driving, but we don't do that anymore. And pit stops nowadays, roughly 6 to 8 seconds. There on the left is Victory Podium, and right next to it is the world-famous pagoda. We'll be going onto and inside both of those here a little bit later on, so I won't tell you too much about them right now. We'll save that for a little bit later. We're running through the pagoda. By golly, you're right, Chad, onto the track. The world-famous yard of bricks. Now, each of these bricks date back to 1909. They are original bricks. The front stretch is still predominantly brick until 1961. And there is a tradition with these bricks. In 1996, Dale Jarrett won the 3rd Brickyard 400 for what was then the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. And after the race was over, he and his crew wanted to do something unique to honor the track's history and tradition. So they came on out after everybody came off, knelt down, and gave the bricks a kiss. Now, if you'd like, we can get out, and you can see the bricks up close. I do have umbrellas we can use, or continue on, whatever you feel most comfortable with doing.
It's up to you. You've already kissed the bricks. You've seen them. I don't know if you want to get out in the rain again or not. It's up to you. There's a lot of water on the track right now.
There is.
Yeah, I've already done it, so
Okay.
I'm having a pass
All right.
on that.
From a couple years ago.
Oh, very nice. Did you say you were here for a band competition?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am.
What do you play?
I'm on the rack,
Percussion.
percussion.
I did that for 8 years in elementary and high school, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
Very happy to hear it.
All right.
I just did snare drum. The harness I used was wrong, messed up my back before I wrote it. But we're not here to hear about that. We're here to talk about the track. So, the next thing we'll talk about, tall lit up structure straight ahead. I'm glad it's lit up today. That's our scoring pile. We've had a structure like that in that general area since 1959. The first board was very basic. We'll just give a rundown of the field, and the 33 cars would be lit up with the old egg carton type lights, but it wasn't the most reliable board in the world. Sometimes it would be a few laps off, or the bulbs would burn out and you couldn't read the numbers. In 1984, we had it connected to one of our early scoring computers, which probably crashed during the race. So then it just started flashing random gibberish on the board, and everybody in the pits and the stands had no idea what was happening. And finally, manually overrode it with the starting lineup, which then the radio coverage saw got confused and said over the air with about 100 million listeners tuned in, they have Howdy Holmes running in second spot right now. He's been in the pits for 7 laps. This doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know what they're doing. Well, they're showing the starting lineup, Roger. Oh, I'm sorry. Nowadays, basically, modern day computer. Animated graphics, sponsor messages, it'll light up green for the start, yellow for a caution. You'll have, you can put custom messages like Scott's the best guy at the museum, which nobody's requested, but that's okay. Literally anything you can imagine can be put on that board now. Over there to the left, that's the entrance to the garage area, world famous gasoline alley. That'll be one of the later destinations on our tour, but we will be able to go through it and see everything. See the garages here along Pit Road. Those were built in 2000 as part of the Formula One renovations. Formula One, they're such a needy bunch, let me tell you what. They required that their garages be directly adjacent to Pit Road. After Formula One left, though, they started being used by NASCAR. They're still used today if we have smaller events happening, like a private test or the autonomous event that we had the last couple of days. We'll use those garages since they are so close. And earlier this year, they were used as a mass vaccination clinic. So back in Garage Stall 26 back there, that's where I got my second vaccine, and I only tried for on a order mine.
He lives here after he got his. I remember he told me, like, man, don't tell my son that.
I drive to Indianapolis to get ours.
I only tried for 20 minutes when I got it. They did have some of the garages open earlier because, like I said, they were supposed to have the 2 seaters, but it doesn't look like they do now. That's all right. So we'll go on to the warm-up lane now inside of Turn 1. Of course, this is a renovation that took place back in 1993. Originally, we had a safety apron, like what a lot of other tracks have. But for safety reasons, we decided to make this lane that would give drivers an area coming in and out of the pits to get back up to speed safely. Also, if they had a problem and they needed to get off the track in a hurry, it wouldn't interfere with what's happening on track. The upper deck here to the right, so notice how it kind of shrinks down. This is the Penthouse, is what they call it. That stand, basically the actual frame itself, it's been renovated several times, but the frame itself dates back to 1949, so it's the oldest grandstand we still have. It's also the most expensive seat for the Indianapolis 500, that it's not a private suite. So how much do you think one seat in that stand costs for the Indy 500?
For the end, oh, let's say $2,000.
$2,000. How about you, Ellen? What do you say?
I'm gonna say 3.
$3,000. You've both overbid slightly.
Oh, okay.
Really?
About $250 to $260.
Really?
That's it.
Oh, wow.
However, there's a little bit of a little asterisk next to it because there is a 35-year wait just to be considered for one of those seats. But I'll tell you, if you put in your request now for the 140th running in 2056, you might get one of those seats out there. But they're highly sought after because there are no seats anywhere around the track. You can see the entire facility. From up there, you can see Turn 4, all of the front stretch of Pit Road. Also, obviously, Turn 1, Turn 2, a little bit of the back stretch, and I've sat up there for qualifying and practice, and you can very quickly, if you're looking very closely, see them in Turn 3 and the North Shore Chute. So now as we come around, we're going to be heading back to the inside, and congratulations.
Well, if there's a 35-year wait time, probably available on the resale market, we probably underbid.
Yes.